For many Americans, Western Auto was a familiar part of everyday life and a cornerstone of childhood memories. It was where you picked up your first Western Flyer bike and where families learned to repair their old Ford Model T together. In this video, we'll revisit those bright golden years and uncover the reasons why this once-beloved giant collapsed so quickly. $5 and the mail order box. The startup story of Western Auto is a classic testament to American entrepreneurial spirit and foresight. Everything began in 1909, as Henry Ford was starting to use the assembly line concept to mass-produce the legendary Model T. In Kansas City, Missouri, George Pepperdine, a 23-year-old young entrepreneur, was only earning $15 a week as an accountant at Southside Garage. However, Pepperdine possessed a clear vision, a retail chain specializing in replacement auto parts. He recognized an important fact: the automotive industry was developing rapidly, but car owners, especially those living in remote rural areas, faced countless difficulties finding the necessary replacement parts and accessories to maintain their vehicles. With only $5 in his pocket, Pepperdine started his small business right in his kitchen, then rented a display window at a car dealership, but primarily through the mail-order business model. This was a groundbreaking strategy at the time, as it offered affordable auto parts directly to the customer's home. His initial product catalog was modest, just a few thin pages, but it contained essentials like tire repair kits, spark plugs, and crucial parts for the Ford Model T. Western Auto's early success came not just from the product, but from Pepperdine's own dedication. He personally handled all customer correspondence and ensured orders were fulfilled efficiently. This attention to detail and commitment to customer satisfaction helped Pepperdine build absolute trust and loyalty, an extremely important factor in an era where the mail-order business format was still new and seeking widespread acceptance. Western Auto became a lifeline for car owners across the country, providing access to necessary parts without long-distance travel, an unprecedented convenience. This story of the $5 startup became the solid foundation for the subsequent growth of a retail giant, a story that many older Americans still remember and honor. The genesis of the DIY. An often overlooked but crucial aspect of Western Auto's early history is the company's role in initiating the do-it-yourself DIY repair movement in America. Before the idea of buying tools and fixing one's own car became popular, Western Auto provided ordinary people with the necessary tools and parts so they could maintain and repair their own vehicles. At the time, cars were rapidly becoming central to daily life, and the ability to control their own vehicle gave Americans, especially those living in remote areas, an invaluable sense of independence and self-sufficiency. George Pepperdine created a retail environment that allowed consumers not to rely on expensive or scarce repair services. By offering detailed and easily accessible parts via mail, Western Auto encouraged and empowered customers to learn mechanical skills themselves. The confidence in the consumer's ability built a culture where rolling up one's sleeves and troubleshooting a Ford Model T was a point of pride. This was a significant difference from the traditional retail model, where customers were merely buyers. At Western Auto, customers were self-repairers, people who created value for their own lives. Thanks to this personal connection, Western Auto didn't just sell parts, they sold confidence and control. The explosion of the DIY movement, which Western Auto helped create, was a core factor in their rapid expansion and becoming a household name in the community. The ability to turn complex mechanical items into easily installable parts for the general user was a genius strategy. From catalog to local store. The rapid success of the mail-order model gave George Pepperdine enough resources to take the next leap, opening physical retail stores. In 1915, just a few years after its founding, Western Auto opened its first retail store in Kansas City. This event marked the beginning of a new era, transforming Western Auto from a modest mail-order business into a growing retail chain. However, due to health issues, Pepperdine later moved to Denver and opened a second store there. Following his doctor's advice, he then moved to Los Angeles. He kept the Denver store, but sold the Kansas City store to Don Davis, a printing salesman who had printed Western Auto's catalog since 1910. Under Davis's leadership, the company continued its strong expansion. By the 1920s, Western Auto had developed into a thriving retail chain that was rapidly expanding across America. As the number of cars on American roads increased, Western Auto's product range and influence grew accordingly. George Pepperdine, after selling most of his business interests due to the loss of his wife in the early 1930s, used the money to establish Pepperdine University, another legacy of his. Under the new management, the physical store model flourished. Western Auto developed a vast network including company-owned stores and associate stores. This associate store model helped Western Auto reach even small towns across the U.S. In fact, Western Auto is considered the founder of the franchise business model in America, a pioneering achievement in retail. This strategy allowed the company to grow to its peak, with over 1,200 company-owned stores and more than 4,000 associate stores nationwide. The transition from a modest catalog to a chain of local stores laid the foundation for Western Auto to become an American retail monument. The family one-stop shop. As Western Auto entered the 1930s and 1940s, George Pepperdine and his successors realized a crucial point. For sustained success, they needed to expand their vision beyond mere auto parts. The product diversification strategy transformed Western Auto into a true one-stop shop. The Western Auto store quickly became an integral fixture in both small towns and large cities, a familiar place where the whole family could find what they needed. Stepping into a Western Auto store during its heyday was a memorable experience. You would be greeted by shelves stacked with everything, not just Davis tires, Tough One batteries, Wizard spark plugs, but also household goods, tools, and entertainment items. Western Auto was not just a place to stop by for a spare tire. It was where families could browse a variety of bicycles, camping gear, true-tone radios, and even major household appliances. The convenience these stores offered at the time was unparalleled. Customers could find everything they needed in the same location. This expansion of the product line transformed Western Auto into a destination not only for car repair enthusiasts, but also serving the needs of the entire family. Western Auto created a strong emotional connection with consumers. With this product diversification, Western Auto reached its peak, becoming a beloved part of the American retail landscape. The appeal of being able to buy a new Wizard lawnmower, a true-tone radio, and a set of spark plugs for your car in the same trip was a huge competitive advantage over specialized stores of the time. It was a convenient, welcoming, and communal shopping experience that modern consumers can hardly fully imagine. The legendary Western Flyer bicycle. Among the non-automotive products, none became as iconic and beloved as the Western Flyer bicycle. This private label brand was first introduced in the 1930s and quickly became an icon of American childhood. These bicycles were famous for their distinctive design, sleek style, incredible durability, and most importantly, affordability, making them the top choice for American families. Western Flyer was sold exclusively at Western Auto stores. Their presence in catalogs like the Thrift Book of 1937 or the 1962 Flyer was always emphasized, along with accessories such as bike tires, tricycles, wagons, and pedal tractors. The Western Flyer brand was first trademarked in 1931. Western Auto did not manufacture them itself, but partnered with many reputable manufacturers of the time, including Shelby, Cleveland Welding, Huffy, and Murray. This collaboration ensured the quality and diversity of models, from simple bikes for young children to more complex cruiser models with front brakes, 3-speed gears, and luggage racks. Many children grew up with memories of riding their Western Flyer, feeling the freedom and joy of a new bicycle. Loyalty to this brand spread, making customers trust the quality and value that Western Auto offered across all other items. What is your most memorable recollection? If this video brings back good memories, please support it. Your support will help nostalgic content like this live on. The dominance of the Wizard brand. During Western Auto's peak, the company did not just rely on national brands, but also developed a range of high-quality private label products, the most prominent of which was the Wizard brand. The Wizard brand spanned an incredible range of products, from essential automotive items to household appliances and outdoor gear. This showed Western Auto's ambition to provide a comprehensive solution for the American family. The Wizard product line included everything: silver cobalt and champ car batteries, lawn mowers, refrigerators, and even TVs and typewriters. Wizard products were marketed as a reliable but affordable alternative to more expensive national brands. Many American families trusted Wizard because they knew that, despite the lower price, the quality of these items was guaranteed. For instance, the 1962 catalog detailed 9 different types of Wizard lawnmowers, asserting that Wizard was the best choice. There were even Wizard refrigerators that came with a $200 food protection plan, a significant guarantee for customers at the time. Besides Wizard, Western Auto also had other exclusive brands, including Davis Tires and True Tone Electronics. This diversification of private brands gave Western Auto a significant competitive advantage. They controlled the quality and cost, while also fostering loyalty to brands that could only be found in their stores. The dominance of Wizard and other private labels was a key factor in making Western Auto a retail force to be reckoned with in the 1950s and 1960s. Innovations in retail and customer service. One of their most groundbreaking strategies was adopting a hybrid model, combining catalog ordering and physical stores. Customers could place orders from a catalog or by mail, and then choose to pick up the goods at the store or request home delivery. This multi-channel approach was ahead of its time, combining the convenience of remote ordering with personalized on-site service, a model that modern retailers still strive to perfect today. Furthermore, the in-store shopping experience was a key factor. Western Auto stores were famous for their friendly, knowledgeable staff. Many employees were trained to assist customers with everything, from identifying needed auto parts to advising on home renovation and using Wizard tools. They offered expert advice to ordinary people, helping families maintain their vehicles and homes without relying on expensive services. Customers could buy a wrench set to DIY with advice from staff, and even pay in installments with no down payment. This personal touch helped Western Auto establish itself as a trusted name in communities across the country. Western Auto set a high standard for service, turning the store into a place not just for transactions, but also for learning and receiving support. Community impact. Associate stores, owned and operated by local entrepreneurs, particularly emphasize this community connection. A prime example is the Western Auto Store in Whitesburg, Kentucky, opened by Owen Wright Sr. in 1947. This store was one of the first franchises in the area. His son, Owen W. Wright, who later took over the store in 1982, turned it into a small museum of local history. Inside the store, he displayed an impressive collection of photographs of Letcher County history, making it a place where locals and visitors came to reminisce about life in the past. This proves Western Auto's role as an inseparable part of local identity. This trust was built over decades, with items like Western Flyer bicycles and Davis tires becoming part of family life. Although Western Auto's business strategy later faced difficulties, their community legacy, maintained by store owners like the Robinson family in Starkville, Mississippi, shows the deep attachment the brand created. Western Auto became a symbol of American ingenuity and service for decades. Financing and motorsports. Western Auto proved sophisticated in marketing and expanding its reach, especially through the use of financing and motorsports. During its golden years, the company recognized that to sell high-value items like Wizard appliances or large auto parts, they needed to make them more accessible to middle-class families. For this reason, Western Auto introduced its own credit plan. This initiative allowed customers to finance large purchases through easy monthly payments. For example, in catalog flyers, they often advertised that customers could buy power tools or new tires with no down payment and monthly installments. This plan helped many families access products they might not have been able to afford immediately, thereby increasing reach and building customer loyalty. In terms of marketing, Western Auto invested heavily in motorsports. Sponsoring NASCAR teams and events in the 1950s and 1960s solidified their reputation as an authority in the automotive world. This sponsorship continued into the 1990s, most notably sponsoring Darrell Waltrip's Winston Cup racing team from 1991 until the end of the 1997 season. They also sponsored Al Hoffman's Funny Car in the NHRA from 1994 to 1997. This association added appeal to the brand, especially for car enthusiasts, and reinforced its identity as a key player in the American automotive industry. American Retail Monument. The 1950s and 1960s were truly Western Auto's golden age, making the company a true American retail monument. It was more than just a chain of stores. It was part of the American architectural and cultural landscape. By the mid-1960s, Western Auto had built a massive retail empire with over 1,200 company-owned stores nationwide, often located in urban areas, along with approximately 4,000 associate stores in small towns. The physical symbol of this dominance was the company's headquarters in Kansas City, Missouri. The Western Auto Building, located at 2107 Grand Boulevard, was built starting in 1914 and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1988. This 12-story building is prominent with its giant multi-story illuminated sign located on top. This sign was not just advertising, but a landmark, a significant waypoint visible from across the Crossroads District and Interstate 35. In 2018, this historic sign was renovated and relit, demonstrating the brand's enduring cultural importance. Western Auto's legacy was built on innovation, diversification, and a deep commitment to the community. The ability to offer everything from Western Flyer bicycles for children to True Tone TVs, Wizard tools for the father, and essential parts for the family car made it an indispensable destination. Do you have any memories of receiving golden advice from Western Auto Store employees that helped you repair your car or do household chores? Please share that story and help us honor the experience of the previous generation. The rise of big box retailers. As America entered the 1970s, the retail landscape began to fundamentally change, creating major challenges for even established brands like Western Auto. The biggest shock came from the powerful and ambitious rise of large-scale retailers such as Walmart and Kmart. These new competitors changed the game by offering a range of products similar to Western Auto, but at significantly lower prices and in larger stores, capable of holding more inventory. Walmart, in particular, grew rapidly due to its extremely competitive pricing strategy and efficient supply chain management, a factor the outdated Western Auto could not match. Consumers were increasingly drawn to the convenience and cost benefits offered by these vast retail centers, leading to a significant decline in visits to Western Auto stores. The 1962 catalog described Western Auto as an adventure, a fun place, but when big box competitors emerged, the comparison started leaning toward large-scale price and variety. This competition slashed Western Auto's profits, making it difficult for the company to maintain its diverse product catalog and personalized service, which were its core strengths. The arrival of new rivals with superior scale and efficiency capabilities placed a big question mark over the viability of Western Auto's old business model. The threat from specialized stores. Besides the attack from big box giants, Western Auto also faced another threat from specialization in the automotive sector. Specialized auto parts retailers like AutoZone and Pep Boys began to emerge and thrive in the 1970s and 1980s. These stores targeted auto enthusiasts and professional mechanics, offering a more focused approach to parts and services. They had superior depth in product knowledge and specialized inventory. Customers needing a specific part for their new car would go to AutoZone, where they knew they would find it and receive professional advice. Western Auto, with its product diversification strategy, struggled to match the depth of expertise and inventory of these competitors. The diversification strategy, once Western Auto's greatest strength during its heyday, now became its weakness. Consumers began seeking specialized stores for specific purposes, buying household goods at Walmart and auto parts at AutoZone. Western Auto was stuck in the middle, lacking the scale to compete on price with Walmart and the expertise to compete with the new parts chains. This led to Western Auto gradually losing market share, losing mass-market customers to big box stores, and losing automotive enthusiasts to more professional rivals. Obsolescence in technology and stores. The most severe internal problem Western Auto faced in the 1970s and 1980s was the obsolescence of its facilities and technology. While the company had once been an innovator with its mail order and franchise model, by this period, they failed to modernize their stores quickly enough to keep pace with new retail standards. Many Western Auto store locations were outdated in layout and appearance. As retail technology evolved, with computerized inventory systems and streamlined checkout processes becoming industry standard, Western Auto lagged behind. This lack of technological infrastructure made the company significantly less efficient than its new competitors. Managing inventory became difficult, leading to problems with increased operating costs. Additionally, larger discount stores like Target and Sears also expanded their product lines to include auto parts and household goods. This meant Western Auto faced increasing competition in areas that were once its strengths. The retail environment had shifted to prioritize specialization and low prices, and maintaining old, inefficient stores placed great pressure on Western Auto's profits. The lack of investment in technology and appearance made Western Auto look increasingly outdated and less appealing compared to the new, modern, and clean stores of its competitors. Identity crisis. In a desperate attempt to combat competition from big box and specialized stores, Western Auto tried to adapt by refocusing on its automotive roots. In the early 1980s, they converted all company-owned stores into so-called flag stores, selling only auto parts and accessories. This strategy aimed to re-emphasize Western Auto's core identity as an auto parts provider. However, this action created a serious identity crisis. To do this, Western Auto had to eliminate many diverse household items, entertainment products, and non-automotive wizard products. This alienated a large number of family customers who had been loyal to Western Auto for decades because of its diversity. Western Auto was no longer the place where a family could go to buy everything, from a lawnmower to a Western Flyer bicycle. Although the company attempted to transition stores into the parts-focused Parts America format, they still could not achieve the depth of specialization and absolute trust that AutoZone or Pep Boys had created. Western Auto fell into a dilemma. They became too focused compared to their heyday, yet lacked the necessary specialization to compete in the auto parts market dominated by new rivals. This shift in business focus left customers confused about what Western Auto stood for anymore. The associate stores, mostly located in small towns, realized that their customer base still required a wider variety of merchandise, and most refused to convert to auto-only sales, a decision that was later credited with saving a portion of the company. The decisive turning point: sale to Sears. In 1988, Western Auto's prolonged decline reached a decisive turning point when the company was sold to Sears Roebuck & Company. At the time, Sears itself was also struggling with increasing competition and was looking to strengthen its automotive division. The acquisition of Western Auto from Westray Capital Corp. was expected to revitalize both brands. However, this merger failed to achieve its goals. In fact, it only accelerated Western Auto's decline. Western Auto stores began to lose their independent identity and inherent community spirit as they were integrated into Sears's large and complex corporate structure. Sears began converting company-owned Western Auto stores into the Parts America format and eliminating auto service areas. By 1998, Sears had nearly completed the conversion of the remaining 600 Western Auto stores to the Parts America brand. This process confused customers and overshadowed the once-beloved Western Auto brand. Furthermore, the poor management that plagued Sears during this period only worsened the situation for Western Auto. Sears eliminated valuable Western Auto business segments like Tire America and National Tire Warehouse to form National Tire and Battery. Although Sears retained Western Auto's network of associate stores, under the new leadership, Western Auto lost strategic direction, preventing the brand from being a formidable competitor in the market. When Western Auto stores started closing or rebranding, did you feel regret? Please share your feelings so we can reminisce about that era together. More complex car technology. One of the less discussed but very important reasons leading to Western Auto's collapse was the change in automotive technology and the decline of the DIY culture. For decades, Western Auto built its entire brand on empowering consumers to perform self-repairs. However, as America entered the 1990s, modern automobiles became increasingly complex, relying mainly on computer systems, specialized electronic components, and sophisticated diagnostic equipment. This complexity made self-repair much more difficult for the average consumer. The era when you could easily replace the spark plugs or a wizard carburetor for your 1949 to 1953 Ford V8 was over. Now, repairs often required specialized tools and deep technical knowledge. As a result, the number of consumers performing DIY car repairs significantly decreased, and this market shifted towards professional service centers. This change in customer behavior left Western Auto reactive. Their brand was built on the simplicity and accessibility of DIY, but market complexity diminished that core appeal. Western Auto could not quickly transform its business model to become a complex repair service provider or an electronics parts specialist, causing them to lose competitive edge against both service centers and other specialized parts chains. Failure in logistics and supply chain. In the 1990s, efficient supply chain management and logistics became crucial for retail success, and this was an area where Western Auto failed miserably. Competitors like Walmart mastered the art of inventory control using advanced technology, streamlining operations, and reducing costs. Meanwhile, Western Auto operated an outdated and inefficient logistics system. This system suffered from serious inventory problems, a nightmare for any retailer. Stores were either stuck with too much unsold merchandise or suffered from a severe shortage of essential auto parts. This constant overstocking and understocking led to customer dissatisfaction and increased operating costs dramatically. The inefficiency in logistics further eroded profits already diminished by price competition. The lack of technological infrastructure to manage the supply chain effectively prevented Western Auto from maintaining price competitiveness or product availability. Overly risky real estate strategy. This expansion was not always based on sound market demand. In some cases, new stores were opened in areas with low demand for auto parts or regions already dominated by stronger competitors. This overexpansion not only depleted resources, but also led to significant operational inefficiency. Stores in less profitable areas drained resources from more successful locations, and management struggled to maintain consistent service and product quality across such a vast and scattered retail network. After the acquisition by Sears, continuous leadership instability and strategic changes only exacerbated this problem. The lack of a clear long-term strategy, combined with hasty expansion decisions, created confusion and lowered employee morale, contributing to the company's poor performance in its final years. Ultimately, when Advance Auto Parts acquired Western Auto, they were primarily interested in absorbing valuable store locations, but even this could not salvage the inefficiency of the entire damaged distribution and logistics network. Missing the Internet era. Although the Internet and e-commerce were not fully mainstream in the early 1990s, missing the digital era became a fatal blow to Western Auto. Western Auto had a rich history with the catalog mail-order model dating back to 1909, an ideal foundation for transitioning to e-commerce. However, as companies like Amazon began experimenting with e-commerce, Western Auto failed to recognize the enormous potential of this developing market. Had Western Auto invested in an early e-commerce platform, they could have leveraged their catalog heritage to provide customers with an easy way to buy parts and other items online. Instead, Western Auto remained stuck in the traditional retail model, struggling with issues of outdated locations and inefficient logistics. While competitors gradually moved toward digitalization, Western Auto still relied on its physical store network and traditional promotional flyers. This lack of innovation made Western Auto's business model increasingly obsolete, especially as consumer preferences began to shift toward the convenience of online shopping. The inability to pivot quickly in the technology sector, combined with other internal issues, caused Western Auto to miss the opportunity to remain relevant in a rapidly changing retail world. The official end, 1998. The final chapter of Western Auto was written in 1998 when the parent company Sears sold what remained of Western Auto to Advance Auto Parts based in Roanoke, Virginia. This was not a simple transaction. Sears received $175 million in cash and, in return, became one of the largest shareholders, holding a 40% stake in Advance Auto Parts. However, Advance Auto Parts' goal in this acquisition was not to preserve Western Auto's legacy. Instead, the transaction was primarily based on real estate considerations, aiming to absorb valuable store locations of Western Auto, particularly the distribution network of Parts America stores. Advance Auto Parts merged its existing store network with 590 Parts America stores and 40 Western Auto stores in Puerto Rico, expanding their network to over 1,500 stores in 36 states. Following the transaction, Advance Auto Parts provided very little support for the operations of the remaining associate stores. They ceased providing goods and services to Western Auto's distribution network in January 2004, a decision that officially ended the Western Auto brand after nearly a century of business. The gradual loss of the Wizard brand. The Wizard brand, Western Auto's private label for a range of products from household goods to tools and auto parts, also suffered the same fate as the parent company. During its heyday, Wizard offered reliable and affordable alternatives to major brands. However, as Western Auto began its decline and sharply refocused on its automotive roots, Wizard household products such as refrigerators, TVs, and lawnmowers were gradually eliminated. Sears and subsequently Advance Auto Parts, which were only interested in the auto parts segment, had no motivation to maintain this diverse line of household goods. Although some Wizard automotive items, particularly batteries and parts, were still sold for a short time after the Sears acquisition, the Wizard brand generally ceased to exist as it once did. It became a victim of the broader decline of Western Auto. Today, some durable Wizard products, especially gardening equipment and tools, can still be found in the used goods market, and they carry a certain nostalgic value for those who remember using them during Western Auto's prosperous years. Furthermore, the associate stores, which were independent franchises, also represent a notable part of the legacy. When Advance Auto Parts terminated the wholesale supply program in January 2004, many of these associate stores chose to continue operating independently, although they had to drop the Western Auto label and convert into local auto parts or hardware stores, seeking supply from other vendors. A few, such as the store in Whitesburg, still exist as a historical highlight, even though they are no longer officially associated with the Western Auto brand. Do you ever stepped into a Western Auto? Please hit like and subscribe to Back to Yesterday to help us preserve these cherished memories. See you on the next journey of nostalgia.